In this episode of Latitudes, we follow the trail of one of the great explorers, Sir Ernest Shackleton, on a unique Antarctic expedition. We discover some of Britain's hidden treasures, restored canals, houses, planes and caravans. And we journey to an extraordinary dive destination, Sipadan Island, which is also known as the turtle capital of the world. The 1908 Nimrod Expedition ended in frustration, 97 miles short of the South Pole and beaten to the landmark by the Norwegian Roald Amundsen. But beyond national prestige and scientific research, there Sir Ernest Shackleton was one of the great explorers of the early 20th century. He and his fellow Briton, Robert Falcon Scott, and their Norwegian rivals led the way in polar exploration. We visit an exhibition in Cambridge which throws new light on his leadership. When Shackleton and contemporaries explored thousands of miles of the uncharted Antarctic, they were true groundbreakers. This was exploration before satellite phones and high-tech navigational devices. Perhaps his most famous expedition began just as the First World War broke out. By 1915, the attempt by Shackleton and his team to make the first trans-Antarctic crossing on Endurance was in trouble. Food was in short supply as they trekked more than 1,800 miles. His diaries, on show for the first time, reveal a man who understood the dynamics of leadership. From a teenager who joined the British Merchant Navy in the late 19th century, Shackleton's passion to explore grew. The motivation that drove him was complex. He clearly enjoyed greatly the aesthetics, the beauty, and the grandeur of the Antarctic. The Ernest Shackleton Odyssey is one of the many unique Antarctic travel journeys offered by Aurora Expeditions. This voyage follows the path of the Odyssey from the northern Weddell Sea, past Elephant Island and across the Scotia Sea to the southwestern side of South Georgia. Shackleton's epic story of survival, which started with the sinking of his ship Endurance in the Weddell Sea 6 months previously, symbolises heroic Antarctic exploration. Here, the expedition visits Shackleton's Memorial Cross at Cumberland Bay. The expedition also got close to hundreds of king penguins on the beach. A band of fur seals gets the pulse racing and provides a great photographic opportunity.
Get out of here. Get out. Get out of here.
Nearby, a herd of reindeer can be seen. Here are nesting gentoos and southern giant petrels. These are expedition-style journeys which benefit from flexibility among staff and passengers alike. The expedition heads to South Georgia to visit the evocative ruins of the abandoned Stromness whaling station. On the 20th of May 1916, Sir Ernest Shackleton arrived here, accompanied by Frank Worsley and Tom Crean after an epic trek of 30 miles from King Haakon Bay. Here they had left 3 comrades with the tiny boat James Caird. In her they had sailed 800 miles from Elephant Island after their ship Endurance had been crushed by ice in the Weddell Sea. This was their first contact with the outside world for 17 months. Now these seals have made it their home. Antarctic expeditions are a unique experience for many reasons. Antarctic summers are blessed with 18 to 24 hours of daylight, which enables adventurers to maximize the time ashore. Exploring opportunities are taken as they arise. One climbing party might set off at 6 p.m. to scale an unclimbed mountain. Sometimes they may go ashore close to midnight to bathe in the thermal springs. If whales are spotted after dinner, they may go aboard inflatable boats for a closer look at the ocean's gentle giants. But generally, days are more routine, with regular meals prepared by European or Australian chefs who are wizards at their craft. The days are filled with lectures, deck-top views of the spectacular Antarctic scenery, and forays ashore to view wildlife or points of scientific or historical interest. Zodiacs are used not only as landing craft, but also takes them closer to icebergs and wildlife. Expert polar naturalists accompany the group on shore, as well as sharing their knowledge through lectures, videos and seminars on board the ship. The overall pattern of cruising life is a relaxed one, punctuated by exciting views and excursions. You can participate in the way that suits you best. It's worth remembering that this is travel in an unpredictable climate in remote and wild areas, albeit in comfort and safety. In Antarctica, you can sometimes end up 100 miles from the expected destination due to a last-minute change of plan. This is the secret of the adventure. With 15 years' experience, Aurora Expeditions is the recognised leader in the Antarctic field. They were the first company in the world to offer camping, mountaineering, glacier walks, iceberg climbing, sea kayaking and scuba diving on Antarctic ship-based expeditions. Britain's Cotswold Canals are being restored in a major new project, which has begun to unlock many heritage structures along its lost waterways in England. Originally built for trade purposes, the canals fell into disuse against competition with railways in the 1840s. Now, British Waterways is regenerating Britain's waterways and unlocking their social, economic and environmental potential, as well as showing off hidden treasures from the past. Canals were the lifeblood of the Industrial Revolution. Their importance now is for leisure rather than commercial use, which is why they were built. Leisure, pleasure, and the environment. Canals can encapsulate all of those. By restoring the Cotswold Canals, an important industrial heritage will be preserved. Also, additional visitors to the canal will bring an enormous amount of new tourism spend, which will enable the creation of 16 kilometres of new wildlife habitat. Another great historic English restoration is taking place in Bedfordshire. One of the greatest examples of Georgian architecture in Britain, Moggahanger House, has been restored to its original state after 2 centuries of different uses and alterations. The Preservation Trust has spent millions of pounds bringing the house, built by Georgian architect Sir John Soane in the 1790s, back to its original beauty. The house was purchased for £1, but the cost of buying the whole estate and restoring the house is now climbing towards £7 million. Luckily for its new owners, the Preservation Trust and the general public, the Lottery Heritage Fund and other bodies agree this John Soane house is worth restoring. Though still very much a building site, people have already taken advantage of Heritage Open Day to view the house and original features workmen have uncovered. The Trust hopes this public interest, together with tourism and business use, will provide the means to ensure future upkeep of the house. There is also hotel accommodation, with 25 ensuite bedrooms plus conference facilities. Whilst in England, we visit the Imperial War Museum, which houses many military aircraft from the past. It had been preparing for a Living Legends air show, featuring some 60 aircraft. But the preparations also led to a unique renewal of acquaintances between man and machine. This is a rare Hawker Nimrod built in 1931, the only complete airworthy example of its kind of aircraft in the world. And this is the man who flew it before the outbreak of World War II, 92-year-old Air Vice Marshal Geoffrey Eveley. Air Vice Marshal Eveley last flew this plane in 1937. He read in the Aeroplane magazine that this particular plane had been resurrected, and he realised that he was the pilot. This Nimrod was the first Fleet Air Arm's primary fighter in the 1930s, and S-1581 served on the warship HMS Glorious in the Mediterranean. For one old man, this brought back some stirring memories. The Flying Legends show also features an old German biplane, still strong and capable of performing to the crowds. Flying fortresses, Dakotas and Hurricanes. And no aircraft exhibition would be complete without the most famous of them all, the Spitfire. A classic fighting machine on and off the ground. Almost as impressive as the veterans who flew in those days. Also in England, and a great attraction to visit, is the Caravan and Outdoor Leisure Show. It highlights the growing interest in such pursuits. With more British residents choosing caravan holidays, it's a booming industry worth around £1 billion to the UK economy. At the Caravan and Outdoor Leisure Show in London, manufacturers of caravans and motorhomes are doing brisk trade. Despite the growth in overseas travel, it seems more and more Britons prefer to holiday at home. They are great, safe environments to enjoy. Today's caravans are a far cry from the past. On board, there's every luxury available. The UK's biggest caravan and motorhome manufacturer sells 30,000 caravans and 8,000 motorhomes a year, with home demand pushing up the sales. For those with a big budget, the Cloudliner may be the answer. They sell around 100 in the UK each year. The motorhome starts at £155,000. That's for the model on show, but it can be custom made. Sales of caravans and motorhomes at last year's show reached £100 million. With more Britons showing an interest in such leisure holidays, the industry is looking to exceed that figure this year. On this diving adventure, we visit Sipadan Island, which lies in Sulawesi Sea off the northeastern coast of Borneo in Malaysia. Being designated as a World Heritage Site, it possesses one of the most unique marine ecosystems in the world. Parading such pelagic fishes as barracuda, buffalofish, jack, shark and manta ray, as well as an abundant richness of hard and soft corals. Sipadan Island is also known as the turtle capital of the world. Diving on Sipadan was pioneered by Borneo divers. Above the water, it's just a tiny 40-acre spot of jungle with a white sandy beach. But below the water, Sipadan's vertical topography and abundant marine life make it one of the world's most desired destinations. Diving at Sipadan is not rated as the best in the world without good reason. The waters are calm and warm, visibility is generally good, and the quantity and variety of marine life is astounding. No Sipadan dive site is more than a 5-minute boat ride from the resort. It's a little like a liveaboard with a beach. Sipadan is famous for its wall diving. Walls surround 90% of the island, and most are sheer drops that extend out of sight into the blue depths. While most divers are very impressed with the quantity of large marine life at Sipadan, it is a haven for tiny creatures as well. If you take the time to look away from the larger inhabitants and concentrate on the close-up view of the reefs and walls, you'll find a myriad of rare creatures to entertain you. If you're a photographer, you'll wish you had 2 cameras with you. One for wide angle and one for macro. Virtually every site at Sipadan is good for both large and small subjects. The Turtle Cavern is located on the drop-off in front of Borneo Divers Resort. Its massive opening on the wall leads to a huge room extending over 65 metres back into the island. The first surprise is the sheer size of the cavern that is literally right under the resort. The second surprise is the skeletal remains of turtles which have lost their way in the cavern at night and drowned while trying to find the way out for air. The cavern was exposed to air during the last ice age when the sea level was lower, so it has the stalactites and stalagmites in the far reaches. At Sipadan, turtle sightings are so commonplace that they're taken for granted by divers after their first day. So enthusing about turtles immediately marks you out as a new arrival. Throughout the year, turtles can be seen on nearly every dive, sometimes every few yards. And since turtles spend much of their time in the shallows, they're easy to snorkel with too. The lazy observer can sit on the end of the jetty watching turtles swim by just below the surface, occasionally surfacing to breathe. Turtles rest on the reef top or on the ledges beneath coral overhangs, though they can often be seen cruising along the reef edge. Large remoras may attach themselves to turtles and act as cleaners, removing various external parasites. Mating takes place at the surface, often an ungainly procedure involving much rolling about and waving of flippers as the amorous male tries to mount the female. A pair have been even momentarily mistaken for a diver in distress. Of the 7 species of sea turtles in the world, at least 3 occur in Sipadan: the abundant green turtle, the hawksbill, and an occasional Pacific or olive ridley. Most turtles are carnivores or omnivores, though the mainly vegetarian green turtle prefers a diet of seagrass. The female turtle comes ashore to lay her eggs and laboriously hauls her heavy body up the beach at night, using her foreflippers, which leave tracks like tyre marks in the sand, varying according to species. She picks a site above the high water line and uses her foreflippers to dig a shallow pit big enough for her body, then digs an egg chamber in this with her hind flippers. When the eggs have been laid, she flings sand over them and fills in the pit before returning to the sea. The whole process may take several hours and exhausts her. Turtles are very sensitive to disturbance until after they've started to lay their eggs and should not be approached at any stage. Once they have committed themselves to egg laying, they pay scant attention to anything else and can be viewed if proper care is taken. The green turtle nests on Sipadan and has many other nesting grounds in sites as far-flung as Turkey and Costa Rica in Central America. Research there has provided useful information about the movements of turtles, but much of the turtle's life at sea, particularly the first year after hatching, remains a mystery. Newly hatched turtles are vigorous and energetic, but only a few survive the initial scramble down the beach and out over the reef without being snatched up and eaten by birds or crabs on land and by fish in the water. They usually leave the nest en masse at dusk, when they stand the best chance of survival, being least visible. Having survived all the hazards of infancy to reach maturity, the adult animal has the advantage of size against most predators, but can fall victim to sharks. A regular feature on the island is the early evening release of baby turtles into the sea by the appointed Borneo Divers staff member. The biggest threat to turtles comes from commercial exploitation. Not only are eggs taken for food, but adults are taken for their meat and shells, and this frequently involves extremely cruel practices. Despite the large numbers of certain species in some areas, the balance of their existence is delicate. Even large populations can be vulnerable. And without sufficient protection, other populations are dwindling. Borneo Divers has led the way in marine and land conservation on Sipadan, particularly with respect to the green turtle and hawksbill turtle population. They were responsible for co-sponsoring the first environmental studies by the University of Malaysia and the first turtle research program by the WWF in 1990. Through Borneo Divers' direct intervention, the turtle population in Sipadan is thriving, as divers can witness for themselves. And local fishermen, with their outlawed fishing practices, now leave Sipadan alone. Sipadan is a turtle sanctuary, and they are protected under Malaysian law. The turtles and diverse marine life make Sipadan Island an absolutely astounding dive destination. Join Latitudes again when we next trek the globe and explore fabulous and exciting holiday destinations. For further information regarding any story on this episode, log on to www.pbtv.com.au. This program is proudly supported by PATA and Always Dive Australia.